Welcome to the RECON Trader. In today's video, I will share with you a profitable VWAP indicator day trading strategy that I use to trade crypto assets like Bitcoin in both bear or bull markets. Now, if you're not familiar with VWAP or the volume weighted average price indicator, it is an indicator typically most useful to short-term day traders like myself, as it provides traders with pricing insight into both trend and support or resistance levels of an asset. Basically, VWAP is similar to a moving average, but different. It measures the average price of an asset adjusted for volume over time, and it's actually an intraday indicator, which basically means it restarts at the open of each day, and in my case that's around 9 a.m. As you can see on the chart, the big red line moving down, that is basically the VWAP indicator resetting at the beginning of the new trading day. Now, there's a few different ways that a VWAP indicator is used. Probably the main one is to identify trend. When the price is above VWAP, it indicates that the price action is bullish. Thus, a price below VWAP indicates that the price action is bearish. In addition to, you can use VWAP for trend reversals. So when the price crosses above VWAP, that could indicate an upward trend reversal, or if the price is crossing below VWAP, that could indicate a downward trend reversal. Now, as far as using VWAP to identify support and resistance level, it is amazing how VWAP acts as a magnet. The price just seems to be drawn to it. When the price moves too far away from VWAP, it will often return to it before continuing the direction of the overall trend. It is not very uncommon to see pullbacks and then the price pump back up or down depending on what direction the trend currently was moving. However, with that being said, the price might in fact be drawn back to VWAP and then breach it if the trend is actually reversing. Once again, if we look at the chart up here in the left-hand corner, you can see this red candle breaching down below the red VWAP line, and then it sells off. So that was definitely a trend reversal. Now, eventually, the price does breach back above the VWAP and the VWAP line turns green. And I guess I should point out that this is my custom RECON Trader VWAP indicator. Most of the time VWAP is one solid color. I have it set up to switch between red and green if the price action is considered to be bullish or bearish. And in this case, where we get the cross above VWAP, the VWAP line turns green. And in fact, I took a trade and captured a nice profit on the push up. And I will break that trade down for y'all before the end of this video. So that's enough jaw jacking. Let's jump over to the charts and take a look at a couple different strategies. Now, for starters, the VWAP indicator is used by day traders, and we typically use your smaller time frames like your 5-minute, your 3-minute, or your 1-minute candles. I typically use VWAP for the most part on the 5-minute chart. And so we're taking a look at Bitcoin's 5-minute chart over on OKX, and I'm actually using it on the BTC USDT perpetual swap contracts. And so if I drop in my VWAP, you can see a little bit of green, but for the most part a red line on today's chart. And if you look back over here where the line goes green and spikes up, right about that time is where VWAP resets at 9 a.m. my time. That's the beginning of the trading day. And it looks like for the majority of the day, VWAP has been red, and that is because the price action has been bearish. Now, one of the first things that catches my eye is you could have perhaps gotten short here if you were looking at perhaps back here as resistance. And when Bitcoin's price returns back up into that level, it rejects. The price breaches below VWAP. You could have got in on the close of this candle. That'd be kind of aggressive. But had you gotten in on the close of this candle, you could have set your stop loss maybe at the top of these wicks. Let's call it 0.5%. And so if you have a stop loss of 0.5%, my risk management or my risk versus reward requires me to have a minimum of a 1 to 2 risk versus reward. I prefer to get a 1 to 3. So if I have 0.5% as far as my stop loss, then I'm looking at a minimum of 1% profit. Again, I would prefer 1.5% profit. Now keep in mind, those numbers sound small, but when you apply some leverage like 10x, you go from 1% profit to 10% profit. However, on the flip side, your risk, instead of being 0.5%, is now 5%. So if you got in on the close of this candle and you are looking for that 1% profit, well, you definitely get it as Bitcoin sells off on this candle here. You definitely hit that 1%. You could definitely get out, take your profit, and move on. However, if you were shooting for that 1.5, you could have held on, waited for this price action to chop sideways, and obviously eventually you get your 1.5% profit right here. But with that being said, you do leave a lot of meat on the bone. But as traders, it's not our objective to pick tops or bottoms. Our mission is to enter positions that offer the greatest reward with a minimum amount of risk. And so this setup would have been a decent setup. However, it would have been a little aggressive, but you're not entering the trade based on solely VWAP. You typically don't want to enter a trade solely on one indicator. What I would have entered the trade on would have been the fact that we had almost like a double top. We had a lot of resistance up at this level at around 30,500. And so when the price rejected at that level and got below VWAP, that would have been enough intel to perhaps enter a trade. And so that would basically be an example of a cross below VWAP to enter a trade. Now, a trade that's a little less aggressive to me would be right here in the middle of the screen, and that's where the price is essentially chopping sideways on fairly low volume. You see down here at the bottom of the chart, the volume's very low, and the price is pretty much moving sideways. It's not giving up the bottom, and it's really not breaking out above this range. It's stuck in a zone. And so it's not uncommon to see either a breakout above VWAP with volume or a rejection at VWAP with volume. And so that's essentially what we get. As the price gets closer to VWAP, it rejects pretty much as VWAP is coming down, and you can see a spike in the volume down here. And so we get the spike in volume and a push down. You could definitely get involved in this trade on the close of this candle. And again, you're going to want to put your stop loss just above VWAP, and that's going to run you right around 1%. So if you're at 1% and you're shooting for a 1 to 2 risk versus reward ratio, then you're going to want a 2% return, and you actually get that 2% return on the wick of this candle here. Now, with that being said, if you're shooting for that 1 to 3 risk versus reward ratio, you would just miss it on the wick of this candle here, and you see the price starts to reverse on you. Now, the last thing you want to do is give up all your profit. So another way that I actually will exit a trade is by adding a moving average along with VWAP. And actually, my RECON VWAP MA indicator that I created for my trading actually includes a moving average. You can see under the Style tab, you can enable the moving average, and the default that I use is a 9 EMA moving average. That's under inputs. You can select from a variety of different moving averages, and obviously you can change the length to whatever works for your trading strategy. But for me, it's EMA 9 along with VWAP. And so you can see this entire move down. If I was shooting for a 1 to 3 risk versus reward ratio, as soon as that price starts to reverse on me and I don't get hit for my profit, once that price gets above that 9 EMA, that would be an indication for me to go ahead and take profit, as it looks like perhaps this trend is reversing. And so I would have gotten out more than likely on the close of this candle when it closed above the 9, the yellow line, the 9 EMA. Which would have been a 2% profit, or again with leverage, 20% profit when I was risking 1% or 10%. So I still hit that 1 to 2 risk versus reward ratio. You definitely don't want to give up the minimum you're willing to accept, which for me is a 1 to 2 risk versus reward ratio. And again, this moving average keeps me from perhaps pulling the trigger early and getting out on maybe like a little green candle like this, we're nowhere near reversing the trend this whole way down. Even on this big wick down and it reverses up, by no means am I receiving any indication that this trend is actually ready to reverse. Really, until it starts to move sideways and then the price gets back above the moving average. And that is how I use a moving average along with VWAP. And again, that was all based on this chop sideways and then the flush down on volume. And on the flip side, had the price broke out above VWAP, I would still want to see that volume before I jumped into a trade. Had the volume been similar with the price moving up, I would have jumped into the trade to go long instead of getting short. Now, I want to pull up this particular chart. I'm still on the 5-minute BTC perpetual swap contracts over on OKX, but I want to show you how VWAP acts as a magnet, and you can use it to look for pullback opportunities and enter a trade on a pullback, because VWAP oftentimes will act as support, and any push back up could be another entry if you perhaps missed, for example, an entry back here where the price crosses above. Again, you see the red line dip down. That's the reset at 9 o'clock of VWAP. The price continues down and eventually the price crosses above, and typically it's not uncommon after that cross above to get a pullback back into VWAP, which you can see right here. You get that pullback, a couple wicks right in the VWAP, and then you get some pretty good volume and a push up. You could enter here, or if you miss that entry and the price eventually rolls back over, you find support again right here. The price is attracted right back to VWAP. You could have an entry when you see the price start to bounce back away from VWAP and have it run up. And once again, the price draws back towards VWAP, bounces away, pulls back in, finds support, wicks right into it, and pulls away. There are a lot of days where I will enter on these pullbacks, and as soon as the price crosses back below the 9 EMA, the yellow line running through here, I'll take my profit. And then again, when the price comes down, gets back above the 9 EMA, I'd get involved, and as soon as it closes below, I take my profit. You can see throughout the day where the price pulls back, holds above VWAP, gets above the 9 EMA, you could take an entry, and as soon as it crosses below, you get out and capture profit. And basically just shoot and loot and taking profit based on VWAP and the 9 EMA. Alright, so I have one more example I'll share with you, and it is over here on, again, the BTC perpetual swap contract 5-minute chart on OKX. This was a couple days ago, and you can see the big red line down. That's the reset of the market, and the market pretty much moved sideways. We did get one blip kind of above the VWAP, but again, keep in mind, I'm not trading solely on VWAP. I need a few other factors in order for me to get involved. Now, around this time frame, the S&P chart started to pump, and a lot of times I'll watch that chart because Bitcoin has been correlated lately to the S&P. And when the S&P pumped and Bitcoin's price got above this VWAP level, that got my interest. However, it wasn't enough for me to get involved. I wanted to see a pullback. So I actually waited for a pullback. I got it, and I actually got my entry at around 28,940. And so then I had my stop loss set below VWAP and actually down below these wicks at around 0.5%. And then I had my profit target right up here around the top of these wicks, and where you saw resistance back in here, I had it set at 1.5%. And again, I was using 10x leverage, so I would see a 15% profit or a 5% loss, which would be a 1-to-3 risk versus reward ratio. As you can see, as the price action moved throughout the day, I just missed my profit target. And so I ended up exiting in this area, and you might wonder why. Well, it's because I actually had my moving average enabled, my 9 moving average. And as soon as this candle broke down below, I did exit the trade for around a 10.5% profit. And so that pretty much would be a textbook example of a VWAP pullback, and then you go ahead and get the run up. Now, it just missed the profit target. However, I won't complain with a 10.5% profit. It still meets my minimum of a 1 to 2 risk versus reward ratio. And I can't tell you how much profit I've made over the years on these VWAP pullback trades. They are very simple to identify. Now, something else that can help you identify that this trend is reversing off of these lower lows that it's setting is all of a sudden you start setting higher lows. And so that is some intel you can take into consideration when you're entering the trade over here. And so basically there's 2 or 3 different trades off of VWAP that I do pretty much on a daily basis. It'll be the pullback, it'll be the breakout in either direction above or below, or the trade that I find to be extremely reliable is either chopping below or just above VWAP sideways within a tight zone and then breaking either down or up. And one of the main keys to this trade is the low volume and then eventually a spike in volume. And in this case, that would be your signal that there's a lot of sell pressure and this price is more than likely headed down. So I think that pretty much wraps it up as far as my profitable trading strategies when using VWAP. Now, if you want to add the RECON Trader VWAP moving average strategy, it's actually private. You're not going to be able to search in TradingView to find it. You will have to actually use the link that I will drop in the description down below for this particular indicator. And once you click on that link, it'll bring you to a screen something like this. And then you'll have to scroll down and click on add to favorite indicators. Once you add it to your favorite indicators, you can jump over to a chart in TradingView, click on indicators, and then click on favorites. Scroll down through your favorites until you find RECON volume weighted average price plus moving average. Give that a click and it will add it to your chart. And that's pretty much it. So do me a favor, if you like this video, spike a like. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, you might want to shoot that subscribe button so you don't miss future videos. If you have questions or comments, drop them in the comment section down below. Again, I will drop a link to the RECON VWAP moving average indicator in the description down below. And in closing, remember, never send your money into battle without first doing your RECON. See you in the next video.